Good morning, Miss Joan.
Good morning, Harrison.
Hey, so this morning I want to talk about this idea of common misconceptions that either families have or the seniors themselves have of what life will be like as they age. A lot of the outcomes that we experience in life are due to how we think about things. But what are some of the things that people tend to believe that maybe aren't accurate? It could be the adult kids or the seniors themselves. What are some of these misconceptions about aging that seem to permeate this space?
It's huge. Many years ago, a colleague and I at Wesley Woods developed a 20-point quiz on normal aging and myths about aging. And as recently as 1 month ago here, everybody fails it. I've yet to find somebody who gets it all right. So there are so many misconceptions about aging. I'll go back to when I was in graduate school, even. That was a while ago. We were taught that once you get to a certain age, you don't grow any more gray matter in your brain. And the old thing about you go up like this and then it's downhill. So if you send somebody their 40th birthday, it's downhill from them. There is that still perception where now we know that if you stay healthy and follow some guidelines, you go like this, and then you plateau, and then you might suddenly die. So there are just so many misconceptions. And one thing about not growing any gray matter is one of the big misconceptions. We now know that older adults can learn, can grow, they change. There's a misconception that all older people are the same. And yet we know now that they're more different than you and I. They become more who they are as they age, and they drop some of the what I call censors of people. I always will use this example. If my hair looks horrible, you're not going to say anything to me. But an older person will say, "Joan, what happened to your hair? It looks awful." I mean, so
Yep.
those screens are removed. So we treat a lot of older people as if they're all the same. We don't always look at what is unique about them. One of the things I always say is when people say, what am I going to be like? And I'm going to say the same thing as you are now. Your strong points will be stronger and your weak points will be stronger. So that, some of that happens. One thing we deal with a lot in organizations and in home is the whole thing about sex. I was just asked recently to go to do a talk on sexuality in an assisted living community. And the staff, as well as the residents, sort of think, well, that's just, that doesn't happen anymore once you get to whatever age. And yet we know that sexuality and sex is an important part of the lives of older people. And it's very hard, especially in an institutional environment, to have them have the privacy and the opportunity to enjoy that. A lot of the misconceptions we have are around health. We do think that a lot of things are, older people, they shouldn't drive. And yet we know that there are less accidents among older people than there are younger people. Many doctors, unfortunately, don't know even them. When we gave this quiz to fourth-year medical students, they all failed it too, because they're not taught what is normal aging. And so if we
Yeah.
have a conception that because you're 80 years old, you're going to be frail, you're going to be, just not able to do a lot of stuff, then what happens is the older person, him or herself, starts to also believe that. And, oh, I'm too old to, go on a trip, or I'm too old to do this. And so you hear those things. And we've talked, I know, in some of the past seminars about family members wanting their mother or their father to be the mother or father they always wanted them to be.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. People can grow and they can change, but they're fundamentally who they are. And one thing that's important is for people, whether it's a family member whether it's an outside caregiver, is to learn who they are, what have they done in their life, so that you can help them grow. We see a lot of older people who have never painted or never wrote a poem suddenly can write poems and paint beautiful pictures. I worked in an independent community one time where a gentleman who was an engineer who never did anything with his hands, he was all, thinking, he built a crib for his great-great-grandchild. And he was so proud of it. They had a woodworking shop. They taught him how to do this stuff, and he did it. So, there's just a lot of things that people can learn and grow to do. There was a community that I was in Milwaukee where they identified some older people living in an independent setting who were showing some signs of early dementia. And the Milwaukee Symphony went in and taught them how to play a new instrument. And so when they did a pre-test and then a post-test in terms of their mentation, it was a dramatic change. And so again, it's just the conception that because you're old, you can't or shouldn't, do certain things. I know you can read now in our country, there are a lot of universities that are opening up free tuition for seniors so that the seniors can be in the class with the younger people or go on the campus. Some people are building senior communities on a campus so they can have that exchange of ideas. So and finding a doctor who truly understands and likes to work with older people. Now, Medicare has got a lot of rules now that, they have to do certain things, but just even doing a quick survey to see if that person is having some early signs of a dementia, or do they have a urinary tract infection, which is one of the things that can very often make an older person look or act as if they have dementia. But getting to the bottom of that, another misconception a lot of times is that people that are older become children. And if there's one thing, if you haven't seen me in a rage, it takes a lot to get me in a rage. Or if you say that about an older person, I'm going to just, take your head off, because they are not children. And if we start treating them that way, I tell the story that when I knew I was old, when I went to the department stores, and suddenly the salespeople will call me honey. They didn't call me honey or sweetie when I was 40. But now they'll call me honey or sweetie. And so, when I confront or nicely say something to them, they think they're being nice and polite. But in fact, it is, pat you on the head because you're a little old lady kind of thing, rather than you're a customer who has money to spend in your department.
Right.
So it's treating older people as if they're not really capable of learning new things, doing new things, participating actively. The assumption is because you are old, you're going to all have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, when in fact that's not true. It's a terrible disease, and it does affect a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of the people it affects are older people, but that doesn't go along with the aging process. So it's really senses. We know that a normal part of aging is all of your senses, sight, taste, change. They do go down, but not all older people are deaf, so you don't have to scream at them. They're not all, mostly as older people need glasses. Most adults find somehow in the 40s or something, their vision changes and they need, if nothing else, readers or something. Taste changes, and that's one of the things that sometimes we have misconceptions about. A mama who always liked a certain thing just doesn't like it anymore. It doesn't taste good. So learning what's different about the taste. Hearing is one of the real big misconceptions. A lot of older people fight getting a hearing aid because everybody knows I'm old if I have a hearing aid. And yet we now know, studies have proven that if in fact you have a hearing problem and you don't get assistance with a hearing aid, that part of your brain will shut down and you'll never be able to, even with a hearing aid, hear well again. So I kind of always use that as a warning sign, because there's so many older people in the communities and homes that I'm working with. I can't hear you, dear, but they don't get a hearing aid. Or if they
Yeah.
get one, they forget to put it in, or they don't take care of it. But it's really, really important that people know that they'll permanently lose their hearing if they don't get that assistance. So I encourage people to read and understand what is a normal aging process. What happens to somebody normally? Like I mentioned, the senses do decline. But if you get glasses, if you need hearing aids, if you realize that maybe your taste has changed and you need a little more spice or you need a little less spice because things don't quite stay the same. Your mobility, are you staying active, walking, doing things to keep your body functioning well? Balance is a big issue for older people. When they fall, there's usually a reason for that. Either they have a scatter rug in their home that they trip over, or some of these people will wear these slide slippers around the house. Well, those are so dangerous. And, so kind of take it for children or caregivers to take a look and see, how is your home or apartment laid out? Is it safe? Do they have or need rails in their shower, just for that stability? And even if they don't want to or can't afford to install a heavy one, you can go to Home Depot and buy suction cup, rails that you can put in your shower or in your bathroom, those kinds of things. So knowing what's going on, knowing what's been going on with your mother or father, aunt, whatever, and just realizing that because they're old, that does not mean they can't learn, they can't grow, they can't enjoy life. That's my spiel.
Yeah. Well, what we see a lot, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is either the family member or the senior believes that they don't have anything else to offer. They're just sort of on the train out of town, and they really don't have anything else going on in their lives that is meaningful or important. Or you have somebody who takes that belief system and understands that their accumulated experiences and wisdom and talents and life experience means something, and therefore they have something to offer the world still and offer their families. How do you think, let's say, adult children or family caregivers can help keep seniors in the mindset or push them towards the mindset that says, hey, your life experiences, the skill sets that you've gained over the years, and your wisdom is worth sharing with the family, and it's worth you believing that you still have something to offer. How can family members do that with their senior loved ones?
Well, first of all, they have to believe it, but assuming they do, to be very proactive, have a family dinner and with your children there and say, Mama, tell us about what happened here, or what did you do, about this, or what do you think about this? So you actively include them in discussions. You include them in decision making. A lot of older children, will make decisions for their parents. Oh, I don't think I'm going to take Mama here because I don't think she could walk that far. But to say, Mama, we're going to the zoo, or we're going to here. Love you to come. You feel like today you're going to be able to walk with us, or do we need to, get an adaptive device? But to really actively encourage them and include them in events and in decision making, in sharing their experiences, and learning about what's going on with their children and their grandchildren. Sometimes people say, well, don't tell Mama this. I had a friend who has an elderly mother, and she was going to have a heart stent put in. She said, "Oh, please don't tell my mama. I don't want her to worry." Well, what happens if she dies and her mother doesn't know that she even had this process? Older
Mm.
people are not fragile little. Now, if your mama has always been such a worrywart and someone, then maybe you make that decision. But just, include them, tell them what's going on, make them a really active part of your family.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thanks so much, Miss Joan.